Part 9. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 81. Chapter 81 is so sweet, full of pampering. How is it possible? Jian didn't believe it. You don't have that feeling of panic, palpitations, rapid heartbeat, pounding dear, and pounding heart. Luning, no. What kind of nonsense is this girl thinking about every day? It shouldn't be. Jian stared at her face, trying to find something on her face. An outsider would feel her heart beat faster even if she looked at her. How could this girl not feel anything at all? Luning, do I need to lie to you? Jian asked reluctantly, don't you think it's sweet? It's so sweet and full of pampering, it's like a real-life version of a campus idol drama. Luning, not really. She only felt that the other party was hateful and disliked the step she had taken just now that was too light. Then he glanced at the other person and said, I want you to read less novels and idol dramas. If you read too much, you will easily become stupid. During recess, Luning was dragged to the school canteen by Jian. Recently, a new drink has been released in the canteen that claims to be 0 sugar, 0 fat, and 0 calories. It is very popular with everyone, especially girls. This girl buys a bottle almost every day. Standing at the entrance of the canteen, waiting for Jian to check out, she saw a figure running in her direction. He ran straight to Luning and then stopped. The boy is about 1.75 meters tall. He wears glasses and has a handsome and elegant appearance. He looks a little nervous at the moment. He pants slightly and look at Luning and say, Lu, classmate Lu. Luning frowned slightly as she looked at the person who suddenly appeared. She is no stranger to being stopped suddenly. Is something wrong? She asked. The boy took out a love letter and handed it to him hesitantly. Classmate Luning, I like you, can you? Cannot. The next second, a male voice replaced the other party's answer. Lucian came over from nowhere and took the love letter from the other person's hand. He looked at the front and back and said, this is my sister. You don't know? You actually had an idea for my sister and asked me for my opinion yet. Third brother. The boy couldn't help but turn pale when he saw Lucian. Everyone in number 1 middle school knew that Luning was protected by Lucian, and the two had a close relationship. If you want to take advantage of her, you must first pass Lucian's test. But the other party is not easy to mess with. Someone once saw him picking off a group of gangsters by himself. This is also the fundamental reason why there are many boys who like Luning, but few dare to confess. Everyone felt that the two were a couple and maybe they were secretly dating. If someone else gets close to you, it's obvious that they dislike each other for trying to steal their girlfriend. However, he had heard the other party say that he didn't like Luning before, so he dared to come over and express his love. I just didn't expect to be bumped into by the opponent so coincidentally. The boy was annoyed that he didn't pay attention to his surroundings just now. If he knew that the other person was nearby, he would definitely not run over rashly, and asked cautiously, Third brother, can you return your love letter to me? Lucian glanced at the love letters in his hand. He didn't know how many love letters he had received from elementary school to now, but none of them were as irritating to him as this one. I collected the love letter for her, don't think about anything else, he said, while I can still control my fists, disappear from her eyes as quickly as possible. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 82. Chapter 82 I Will Protect You. Lucian's words made boys feel a little embarrassed, especially in front of the person they like. Boys and girls of this age have the strongest self-esteem. Even if they are afraid of the other party in their hearts, they still can't help but boldly say, why? You don't like her, why don't you allow others to chase her? Take her without permission. Don't you think your behavior is excessive for taking other people's love letters and making decisions for others without permission? In number 1 middle school, few people dared to talk to him like this. "You mean, you want to hear this girl reject you with your own ears," Lucian said, glancing in Lu Ning's direction. Lu Ning didn't expect that the fire would suddenly burn her body. She looked at the boy and said, "Sorry, I have no plans to fall in love for the time being." But the boy thought she was threatened by Lucian, and suddenly felt courage and said to her, "Classmate Lu Ning, don't be afraid of him, I will protect you." "Lu Ning," the black man has a question mark face. How did this person figure out that he was afraid of that guy? "I'm not afraid of him. I just want to study hard and don't plan to fall in love during high school," Lu Ning patiently explained to the boy. "Do you hear me clearly?" Lucian said lazily, "It's your business if you want to fall in love. Don't affect my child. She has to go to college. Do you think you are worthy of asking her to risk her future to date you? What's more, high school only lasts for 3 years, and they will go their separate ways after going to college. What do you think you can bring to her?" This was said not so much to the boy, but more to Lu Ning. Lu Ning couldn't help but glance at the other person. When did this person start playing tricks like this? The boy pursed his lips, but he couldn't even refute the other person's words. But after taking a look at the love letter in the other person's hand, he felt a little reluctant. He spent several nights writing it with great difficulty. Moreover, he really likes Lu Ning. "Since I have grown up, I have never seen a girl who is more beautiful than the other person. Looking at each other from a distance makes me feel very excited. If it is rejected by the other party, that's fine, but if it is for other reasons, I always feel that there is no way to give up." In his eyes, Lu Ning rejected him because he was afraid of the other party. Third brother, my grades are very good. I should be able to go to the same university as Lu Ning in the future. Moreover, we can help each other and make progress together, and it will not affect our future university entrance exams." Lucian's face couldn't help but turned cold, and he warned the other party, "Did I not speak clearly enough? Or do you not understand the Chinese meaning? Please stay away from her in the future and don't appear in front of him again. Otherwise, don't." The latter's expression suddenly changed. Seeing Lucian staring at the love letter in his hand, as if he would announce the contents of the love letter if he didn't agree, he reluctantly replied, Okay. Then he looked at Lu Ning and clenched his fists. He said, "But I won't give up. I will try my best to enter the same university as you. By then, no one can stop us from being together." Lu Ning. When did she say she wanted to be with him? Lucian. Has this person lost his mind from reading? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is sweet and wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 83. Chapter 83, Confession to Shurafield. Lucian stretched out his long legs and kicked the other person's directly. He said with a hint of impatience on his face, "Are you leaving or not? If you don't leave, believe it or not, I will post this love letter on the bulletin board for everyone to see. Come and take a look at your writing." "No, don't post it, I'll leave right away," the boy suddenly panicked. "Get out of here," Lucian urged displeasedly. The boy was unwilling to give in, but he was afraid of what Lucian said, so he didn't dare to stay longer. Although he liked Lu Ning, he didn't dare to make a scene known to the whole school. After all, China expressly prohibits puppy love. Even if someone falls in love, it is done privately and secretly. If it gets serious, it is a trivial matter to go to the parents, and you may even get a demerit. His grades are good and he will definitely be fine in the end of year evaluation. If he is punished, there will be nothing left. Lucian then looked at Lu Ning. Before the other party could speak, Lu Ning had already said, "You are not allowed to fall in love prematurely, I know. Many people have confessed to you before, Lucien frowned and asked. Fortunately, I don't have as many admirers as you. Lu Ning glanced at him. Lucien was defeated and an army was defeated, and he was choked and speechless. After a moment, he stuffed the love letter in his pocket and said, "Let's go." Lu Ning looked at his actions and said, "That love letter is for me, right? Shouldn't you return it to me?" "Lucien, leave it here and I'll keep it for you." Lu Ning wanted to say no. He heard the latter say again, "In exchange, from now on my love letters will also be in your hands." Lu Ning thought about it for a while. She didn't intend to look at it anyway. This guy could just take it if he wanted to. As for the other person's love letter, who cares about your love letters? Lu Ning glared at the other party angrily and said, "You can leave." "Okay, I'll go then." Lucien held his love letter in his pocket and walked towards the class with his long legs. After Lucien left, Jian Nian trotted over. Lu Ning glanced at her. "Why did you come out just now?" Jian Nian looked at her and said with a bad smile, "I just came out and confessed to you with those little glasses, but when I saw the third brother approaching, I didn't step forward." "Tisk, is that a large shuro field just now?" "What's the shuro field?" "Okay, let's go quickly. It's time to go to class later." This was not the first time Lu Ning had been confessed, and she had never felt anything about this kind of thing. Just like what she said when she rejected the other party just now. She is serious about wanting to study hard, and she is also serious about not wanting to fall in love. No, with the way third brother is acting, does he look like he's jealous? When I was taking CP before, I was worried that I was taking the wrong one, but now the more I look at the two of them, the more they look like the same thing. The feeling of having the CP you drank come true is simply not a great feeling. The joy of knocking on CP is unimaginable. "Lu Ning, you are thinking too much." Jian Nian blinked. "I don't think I have." "He is just afraid that it will affect my study," Lu Ning said. Jian Nian didn't think so. "He's not your parent. Whose next door neighbor cares about whether you're in love or not? He has driven away all the boys who like you. Is he planning to give you a boyfriend in the future, or will he pay it to you directly?" That's right, that must be the case. The more Jian Nian thought about it, the more likely it was. The third brother is really too scheming. Lu Ning. Are all people today so imaginative? Just a small thing can lead to unlimited divergent thinking. Commonly known as, thinking too much. End of this chapter. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 84. Chapter 84, Falling in Love with Someone Else. Lucien just stepped into the classroom. She glanced at the corner of the envelope in his pocket and said, "Hey, third brother, which little girl has written a love letter to you again?" She then took it out of his pocket. Before he could see clearly what was written on the cover, he felt his hands were empty and the thing was back in Lucien's hands. "Lucien, didn't your mother teach you not to touch other people's things?" "No, who wrote this love letter? How come I haven't seen you, third brother, so precious before? Could it be that third brother is the person you like? No, we have to take a look." The next second, Lucien opened the zipper of his school bag, threw the love letter in and said, "No, an insignificant person." She glanced at the direction of his school bag and said, "Since you are an insignificant person, what are you doing with such a precious person? Someone wrote a love letter to the third brother before, but he didn't see him hiding it. It's okay to just read it, let alone read it." Instinct told him that this love letter must not be simple. Lucien glanced at him and said, "Okay, don't be so curious. Never heard of curiosity killing the cat." "Okay." Shangzi touched his nose, and he felt the murderous look in the third brother's eyes. "It's just curiosity. The more it is not satisfied, the heavier it becomes. Feeling as uncomfortable as a cat's claws." "What are you two talking about?" Chunan walked over and couldn't help but ask when he saw the two of them. The statement immediately said, someone just wrote a love letter to the third brother, and the third brother actually hid it from reading. At this time, even Chunan couldn't help but cast a surprised look at Lucien. After all, after knowing him for so long, I have never seen him receive love letters. He had always let them read them openly before. When something goes wrong, there must be a monster. Lucien, don't listen to his nonsense, the love letter was not written to me. Who is it for if it's not for you? She asked subconsciously. Chunan glanced at his face and guessed, could it be for Sister Ning? Lucien glanced at him and said nothing. Chunan knew that he had guessed correctly, but he didn't know how the love letter to Sister Ning got into the other party's hands. Looking at third brother's attitude, he seems to be unhappy with the fact that Sister Ning received the love letter. Isn't this interesting? Sister Ning's love letter? Why is it here with third brother? Obviously, Shangzi realized that something was wrong. He turned to look at Lucien. Could it be that someone asked third brother to deliver it on his behalf? Chunan smiled and said, I have to ask third brother. No, who is so bold? Didn't you know that Sister Ning already has a third brother? Although the third brother did not admit it, in everyone's eyes, the two of them were together sooner or later. The key is, if the other person writes a love letter, just write a love letter. How did it get into the hands of the third brother? Isn't this just throwing yourself into a trap and escaping all options? Let him know which fool he is, and he must go and observe the other person carefully. Want to know how long this person's brain is? Okay, you two shut up. Lucien didn't want to listen to them. It's too noisy, my head hurts. Shen Shan felt that this was a good opportunity to assist, and couldn't help but whisper in his ear, no, third brother, don't you have any sense of crisis? You see, Sister Ning is so beautiful and smart, I like him. There must be a lot of boys. If you don't take action, she might really fall in love with someone else. End of this chapter. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 85. Chapter 85. What do you think of me being your boyfriend? If you had heard this before, you would definitely not take it seriously. Just like it if you like it, this is not normal. But now, thinking about his father's words last night and the love letter in his school bag, he felt a strange feeling in his heart. It's quite unpleasant. Lucien snorted and said, students should behave like students. There is no point in falling in love with a high school student. If she dares to fall in love with her in high school, I'll see if I don't deal with her. Shutterstock looked at him with a strange expression when he heard this. Three brother, I'm afraid you don't have a clear understanding of Sister Ning at all. If we really take action, it's uncertain who will deal with it. Don't tell me, he was quite looking forward to it. But, third brother, you are just a neighbor's brother, not a real brother. Sister Ning really wants to fall in love, you can't control it, right? The most important thing in life is to have a clear position and understanding of yourself. Obviously, the third brother is afraid that he still doesn't know his identity clearly. Sister Ning gave him face and he was the neighbor's brother. If Sister Ning didn't give him face, he would be nothing. I don't know where his confidence comes from every day, but I feel that Sister Ning will definitely listen to him. Lucien couldn't help itching his teeth, squinting his eyes and looking at him. Why do I feel that your boy deserves a beating lately? She felt a chill on her scalp as she said, third brother, that's what I said. Although I'm not my real brother, Sister Ning will definitely listen to what you say. That's weird. After all, Sister Ning is not as well behaved and harmless as she seems on the surface. He guessed that Sister Ning is just low-key and afraid of trouble, so she has been showing a well-behaved image all these years. After all, the bosses are hiding their secrets so that no one can see through them. I really made a decision about who I want to fall in love with, let alone the third brother. I'm afraid it won't work no matter who comes. It's a pity that the third brother never seems to understand this, and he still thinks that Sister Ning is really the little girl who follows him and calls him brother. I have to say that in terms of understanding Lu Ning, his statement is much clearer than Lucian's. Lucian snorted lightly, naturally seeing that this guy didn't mean what he said. But because of this, I feel more and more irritable. He felt that something was getting wrong with him recently. He seemed to be paying too much attention to that girl's affairs. He must have been influenced by his father and a few of them. Okay, shut up, he interrupted the other person. Jiang Shu touched his nose and closed his mouth wisely. But not long after, he couldn't help but said, "But, you really don't think about becoming Sister Ning's boyfriend? Then no one will dare to have an idea of Sister Ning. Anyway, the relationship between the two of you is not as good as the boyfriend. There's not much difference between having a girlfriend, and it definitely won't affect your studies. Besides, Sister Ning is not bad either. There are many people who want to be her boyfriend, but there is no such store anymore." I don't know if it was because of the words he stated, or if he was affected by what his dad said last night. In short, Lucian's mood obviously changed slightly when he saw the girl again at night. It doesn't seem impossible. What's wrong with you? Lu Ning clearly felt that this guy seemed a little different from usual, especially the way he looked at her, which always felt weird. While waiting for the bus, I finally couldn't help but ask, "Is there something wrong with me?" Then he lowered his head and checked again, but found nothing wrong. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 86. Chapter 86. Should you be responsible for me or something? Is there something wrong with me? Then he lowered his head and checked again, but found nothing wrong. Could it be because of what happened in the morning? Thinking of this, I couldn't help but stare at him and said, "Well, you didn't tell anyone about what happened in the morning, right?" "What?" Lucian was a little distracted at first, but he suddenly came back to his senses when he heard the other party's voice. She replayed the question in her head again before she said, "Don't worry, I didn't tell anyone else." Lu Ning breathed a sigh of relief, and then stared at the other person suspiciously. Then why are you staring at me? She thought there was something wrong with her. Lucian's expression suddenly became a little unnatural. Seeing that there was no one around, he cleared his voice and said, "What do you think of me being your boyfriend?" Lu Ning, not so good. Then he stared at him and said, "Do you have a fever?" Lucian couldn't help but choked, and the expression on his face was almost unbearable as he said, "No, I don't have a fever or illness." "Lu Ning, you don't have a fever, so why would you ask such a question for no reason?" There was a crack on Lucian's face. He also felt that his brain was twitching. He was actually encouraged by the boy who stated that he ran to the girl to say something. He pretended to be careless and said, "I'm not just thinking about it. You've also seen it. You can't just look at it in vain. Should you be responsible for me or something?" Lu Ning was silent for a moment and looked at him. "Are you sure you don't need to go to the hospital for a checkup?" The expression on Lucian's face was completely unbearable. Can this girl speak well? He gritted his teeth and said, "I told you, I'm not sick." "Lu Ning, if you're not sick, you're not sick. Who asked you to suddenly say something incomprehensible?" At this point, she suddenly paused, raised her eyes, looked at the other person and said, "Did you lose a bet with someone? I heard that many boys like to bet on this kind of thing." Without. Lucian struggled to keep the expression on his face unchanged. "I just want to confirm whether you really don't plan to fall in love in high school." Lu Ning glanced at the other party suspiciously. "Didn't I tell you a long time ago that falling in love will only affect my speed in answering questions? Besides, whether I am in love or not, and whether I agree to you being my boyfriend, what's the direct matter? Does it matter? Even if she wants to fall in love, she doesn't have to find him, right? A trace of discomfort flashed across Lucien's face, his eyes flickered, and he pretended to be calm. I'm not thinking about it. We are so familiar with each other. If you really want to try falling in love, you can find me instead. What a boyfriend can do, I can do it. There's no need to look for those messy people outside. Lu Ning looked at him more and more suspiciously, always feeling that this guy was acting weird today. I have never heard that you can hire someone to replace you when you are looking for a boyfriend. This man may not have any serious illness. Lucien felt a little guilty, and he also felt that the reason he gave was terrible. But having said it all, it was too late to be upset, so I could only insist on saying, aren't I afraid that you will be led astray by people outside? You live alone now, and no one is looking after you. I am here to look after Aunt Tang. Keep you in mind so that you don't learn bad things. Fine. Since you don't have that idea, I'm relieved. He said this, but he felt very guilty in his heart. That stinky girl has really no vision. She didn't even know how to seize the opportunity when he gave her such a good boyfriend for nothing. End of this chapter. The school sweetheart soft green plum is sweet and wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 87. Chapter 87 Thousand-Year-Old Vinegar. Lu Ning glanced at him and said, if you have the energy to take care of me, you might as well take care of yourself. Lucien, what's wrong with me? Aren't I pretty good? Of course I'm too handsome and too attractive for girls to like. I'm also helpless. After all, my looks were given by my parents, and I can't control this. But I didn't take the initiative to provoke them. Lu Ning twitched the corner of his mouth. When it comes to narcissism, no one can compare to him. Jishu stayed with her in the hospital for the next few days. It was probably because the meal that day did not end well, and she never saw Lu Yu cooking again. He only gave Lucien some money and asked him to take Lu Ning out to eat every day and then come back. When school was over on Friday, Lu Ning said to Lucien, who was waiting for her, I won't go back with you today. Where are you going? Lucien raised his eyebrows. Lu Ning glanced at the door, and Song Tingzi, who was also waiting for her, said, I promised my mother that I would go back to Song's house on the weekend. Lucien raised his eyes and followed her line of sight. Two eyes met in the air, one cold and distant, the other full of hostility. Lucien's reaction was like a dog whose territory was occupied, and his whole body showed strength. Song Tingzi's eyes only met with his for a second, then he looked away and looked in the direction of Lu Ning and said, have you sorted it out, as if the former was just an unimportant and irrelevant person. Lucien couldn't help but clench the hand hanging by his side. He was actually being ignored, which was simply unbearable, but he had to endure it even if he couldn't bear it. You can't just go up and beat someone up for no reason. I just feel like there is a tight breath in my chest, and I can't go up or come down. I'll be ready soon. Lu Ning stuffed the last book on the table into her bag, zipped it up, then carried it on her back and walked towards Song Tingzi. Lucien looked at the little girl walking in front of him, grabbed her school bag and said, why are you so anxious? Are you afraid that he will run away? At worst, I will take you back if he leaves. Lu Ning raised her head, glanced at him and said, what's the fuss about? Grandma Ji is discharged from the hospital today, don't you still want to see her? Lucien raised his eyebrows, looked at her with a half smile and said, Tisk, I thought you had forgotten. Who said before that we would go visit my grandma when she is discharged from the hospital? The pretty boy walked together, forgetting everything he said. Lu Ning has not forgotten, but she has promised Ms. Tang Li before, and this is the first weekend she has moved back. If she does not go back, she is afraid that the other party will think too much. Let's wait until tomorrow. I'll tell my mother tomorrow and then go visit her old man, she said. Lucian saw that she had said this, and it was no longer interesting for him to hold her, so he let go of his hand and let her walk towards Songtingzi. Coming out of class 12, I happened to meet Zhang Shen and Chu Nan, who were coming down from upstairs. The two of them looked at him, then at Lu Ning, who was walking side by side with Song Tingzi in front of him, and said, "Third brother, what's going on? Why did Sister Ning follow that boy named Song again?" Lucian didn't look very good at this moment, and he was in an even worse mood. Hearing this, he snorted and said, "You are your brother in name only, and I am just a wild brother from my neighbor with no name or distinction. If you don't follow me, is it possible for him to follow me?" Chunan couldn't help but look at Chunan. "Tisk, so sour. It's almost as good as the taste of thousand-year-old vinegar." End of this chapter. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 88. Chapter 88. I Don't Feel Wronged. In the car, Song Tingzi glanced at her and said, "The room on the third floor has been almost decorated. If you find it inconvenient to live alone outside, you can always move back home." Lu Ning didn't expect that the other party would care about her, and he was talking about home. This made Lu Ning feel a little warm in her heart. "Thank you," she said. Song Tingzi's attitude towards her also represents his attitude towards her mother in disguise. It seems that the other party has accepted Ms. Tang Li. Fine. Song Tingzi was not a talkative person. After saying that, he took out a book from his school bag and started reading. There was no more conversation throughout the whole process. Arrived at the Song family. Tang Li had an impromptu meeting with a client and came back a little late. It was only Lu Ning and the Song family's father and son at dinner. At the dinner table, Song Wanzhou briefly asked about the status of the two children at school, and then invited them to eat. The other party is really a very gentle and patient person, compared to her father. Father Lu is a traditional man who is more chauvinistic. He may have been attracted by Tang Li's beautiful and sassy appearance at first, but deep down he still prefers the kind of clinging to others, likes women who are attached to men. The two of them spend time together. After a long time, after the initial period of freshness, various conflicts will inevitably arise. Tang Li was a person who dared to love, hate, and was unwilling to wrong herself. When her father asked her to quit her job and focus on taking care of the family, she finally couldn't help but filed for divorce. When she got divorced, she didn't want anything but Lu Ning. In order to prove that she was able to support herself and her daughter, and that women didn't have to rely on men, she refused Lu's father to pay alimony and refused to let Lu Ning spend the money. The other person's penny. Humanistically speaking, I can't say who is sorry for whom in this relationship. Just doesn't fit. The rest of her life is so long, and she understands that the other person doesn't want to make do with it, and she doesn't blame either of them. She just hopes that both of them can live the life they want and have their own happiness. Tang Li didn't come back until after dinner, and Song's father cooked a bowl of noodles for her. He heated the dish he had left for her before and served it to the table. Lu Ning stood at the stairs of the second floor, watching her mother eating noodles and talking to Song's father with a smile. The two of them didn't talk about anything special, but Lu Ning felt that her mother should be happy at this moment. Life does not require wealth, it is plain and simple. It is enough to have someone who understands you and is willing to accompany you. After Tang Li finished eating, he went up to the second floor to see Lu Ning. "Baby, I'm sorry, Mom is late. By the way, the third floor is almost finished. Do you want to go up and have a look at your room? Wait until you come back next time. You should be able to move in." Lu Ning, "Actually, there is no need to decorate. I think the current room is quite good." Tang Li raised his hand and touched her head and said, "Mom knows that you are a sensible child. Mom doesn't want to wrong herself, And she also doesn't want my daughter to wrong herself. I don't feel aggrieved, really. People around her are very kind to her, and she doesn't feel there is anything to be aggrieved about. Even if the other party divorced and moved her out of the house, he never wronged her in the slightest. The other party has always tried his best to give her the best life. She knows all this, so she never feels aggrieved. I never think that because I come from a divorced family, I feel inferior or unhappy. Two people who don't love each other are forced to be together, which will not make a child feel happy. Similarly, separation will not make children feel unhappy. On the contrary, it would be like living in a loveless and endless quarrel environment. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is sweet and wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 89. Chapter 89. Are there any boys pursuing you? She was lucky to have a mother who was tough, strong, smart and hard-working. Except for not giving her enough company, she did everything else very well. No one did better than her. Also, don't always work overtime in the future, and pay attention to rest. Lu Ning told the other party, I will be able to work in a few years, and then I will make money to support you. Okay. Then I'll be waiting for your mother. Tang Li couldn't help laughing when he heard this, then looked at his daughter and said, by the way, have any boys in school pursued you recently? Lu Ning, you made your precious daughter so beautiful, so it's natural. In this regard, Tang Li did not blindly interfere with her friendships, nor was he worried that she would fall in love prematurely. The mother and daughter even occasionally discussed together what their future partner would be like. As for the matter of receiving love letters, she has been doing it since elementary school. Tang Li believed that she could handle it on her own, so she never asked about it. It's just that she just took over a case recently, in which a high school student failed to pursue a female classmate and actually followed her home and stabbed her seriously. Thinking of this girl living alone, I can't help but feel a little worried. Otherwise, why don't you move back and live with us? In recent years, the juvenile crime rate has increased year by year. In addition, it is not uncommon for some middle school students to taste forbidden fruits and become pregnant. Although she had sent this girl to learn self-defense skills since she was a child, she was still worried that she would be in danger. No, I think it's fine as it is now. Didn't you also agree to let me live alone? Tang Li sighed, knowing this girl's temperament, she would not change her decision easily. Not to mention that it resembled her at all, it was exactly the same. She could only tell her, then you must take care of yourself. Don't run around alone at night. If anything happens, call Xian and the kid with you. Did something happen? Seeing her reaction, Lu Ning guessed that something must have happened, otherwise Ms. Tang Li would not have said this to her for no reason. Tang Li told her about the case. In particular, the girl was stabbed 5 times and had her face scratched, and her worried eyes couldn't help but fall on Lu Ning's face. You should also be careful not to be too tough when rejecting others. It is best to be tactful to avoid irritating the other person and doing something drastic. Boys of this age are at a time when they have strong self-esteem and need to save face. It is difficult to guarantee that they will not become angry and do something hurtful. After all, you only have one life, and safety should be the top priority in everything. Just like the girl in the case, although she was lucky enough to save her life, her face was disfigured and she needed psychological intervention in the later stage. Not to say that her whole life was ruined, but it would definitely have a great impact on her future life. There is also the boy who will be sentenced to at least 3 years and has a criminal record. It is impossible for him to do any decent work in this life. Not to mention having to accept strange looks from others after speaking out. It can be said that both families suffered heavy losses. The reason is simply that the pursuit is unsuccessful. Looking at her daughter's face, she had to worry. However, I am glad that I insisted on sending her to learn self-defense. At least she would not be as helpless as that girl when she encountered danger. End of this chapter. The school sweetheart soft green plum is sweet and wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 90. Chapter 90 Little Liar. I understand, don't worry, I will protect myself. Lu Ning was not arrogant enough to think that no one could hurt her just because she had learned some boxing and kicking skills. After all, when some people go crazy, no one knows what the other person will do. Mother and daughter sleep together at night. Of course, it was also the result of Ms. Tang Li's false request. Although the other party has always shown the image of a strong woman when outside, she is sometimes a mother who needs to be loved and comforted in front of her daughter. Before going to bed, Lu Ning told the other party that she was going to visit Grandma Lucian. Tang Li had no objection and thought it was appropriate. The next day, he specially prepared a bunch of things suitable for the elderly for her. She asked the driver to take her back in person. After Lu Ning returned to the community, she did not go back to her own home. Instead, she went directly to knock on the door next door. It was Lucian who opened the door. When he saw her, there was a flash of surprise in his eyes. So early. He thought she would stay at Song's house until noon before coming back. Lu Ning saw that he was dressed casually and didn't look like he was going out. She couldn't help but glared at him and said, "We agreed to visit Grandma. Of course we have to go early. Are you not ready yet?" "No need to go," Lucian said, "my mother took my grandma to our home." After saying that, he turned sideways and let the girl in. Lu Ning then saw Grandma Ji, Aunt Ji, and Uncle Lu sitting on the sofa in the living room. The whole family is actually at home. Grandma Ji, who was sitting in the middle of the sofa, greeted her with a smile as soon as she saw her. "Is this Ning girl here?" Grandma Ji has 3 sons and 1 daughter, but her sons all work in other places and only come back during the holidays. However, the only daughter who suffered from headaches and fever when she was most separated was also caused by Ji. Shu is taking care of it. After Grandma Ji was discharged from the hospital, she wanted to go back to live in her own home, but Ji Shu didn't trust her alone, so he took her back to his home and continued to take care of her for a while. The old man had met Lu Ning before and liked the little girl next door very much. Beautiful, well-behaved, and sensible, making people happy from the bottom of their hearts just by looking at them. "Hello, Grandma." Lu Ning changed her shoes and walked in. While greeting the old man, she handed the things she brought to Ji Shu. "Aunt Ji, my mother prepared this for Grandma. She said it is good for the old man's health." "Why did your mother ask you to bring so many things again?" Ji Shu couldn't help complaining when he saw the things in her hand. "Didn't I tell you last time not to bring things here all the time?" Lu Ning rolled his eyes and said with a smile, "My mother said they are not worth much, and these are all for Grandma Ji. My mother said she is busy with work, otherwise she would come to visit Grandma with me." Lu Ning rarely smiles with her eyes bent, and she only does this in front of people close to her. Ji Shu's heart softened as soon as he saw her appearance. Naturally, he couldn't bear to talk to her anymore. He just said, "Don't be so polite next time." "I know, Aunt Ji." Lu Ning responded obediently. "As for the next time, naturally we will talk about it next time." Lucian, who was on the side, couldn't help but let out a chuckle as he watched the girl act nice in front of his mother. "Little liar, I was deceived by her cute appearance in the first place. I thought this girl was a little rabbit, but who knew that if I kept it, she would become a little wildcat. And it will also give you a claw suddenly and unexpectedly." End of this chapter.